Have you ever thought your quiet suburban life was safe from drama? Think again. What if I told you that a tiny, almost invisible rule buried deep in your HOA's thick rulebook could cost you thousands of dollars or even your home? That's exactly what happened to me. One simple mistake, one overlooked rule, and suddenly I was facing fines, angry neighbors, and a battle I never intended to fight. Stick around because this story isn't just about rules. It's about power, control, and how I fought back when the system tried to crush me. When I first moved into my dream home in a quiet, picture-perfect neighborhood, I thought I'd found peace. White picket fences, manicured lawns, and friendly neighbors waving hello. It was everything I wanted after years of city chaos. The HOA seemed like a blessing, keeping the neighborhood neat and orderly. But I quickly learned that behind the charm lurked a maze of rules so strict and bizarre that they felt more like a trap than protection. I was warned about some of the usual stuff: no loud parties, no parking on the street overnight, but nothing prepared me for the secret rule that would almost cost me everything. It started with a simple mistake. I trimmed my lawn a little too high. Sounds harmless, right? But apparently the HOA had a very specific rule about grass height, not just a guideline, but a strict limit of exactly 2.5 inches. I had no idea. I thought my lawn looked great, healthy, and green. But one morning I found a bright orange notice on my front door. Violation of HOA Rule 7.3, lawn height exceeds maximum allowed. The letter was polite but firm, threatening fines if I didn't fix it within 10 days. I laughed it off at first. Surely this was a mistake. I mean, who measures grass with a ruler? But then the fines started rolling in: $50, then $100, then $250. And the HOA board wasn't just sending letters. They were showing up in person, inspecting my yard like it was a crime scene. I tried to reason with them, explaining that my lawn was healthy and that the rule was ridiculous. But the HOA president, a woman named Linda, was relentless. She acted like she was protecting the neighborhood from an apocalypse, not just a slightly taller lawn. The neighbors started whispering, some even avoiding me. It felt like I was the bad guy in a story I didn't even know I was part of. I realized this wasn't just about grass. It was about control. The HOA had power, and they were using it to micromanage every inch of our lives. I wasn't alone. Other neighbors had similar stories of fines for paint colors, mailbox decorations, even the type of flowers in their gardens. But what made my case worse was that I was new, and Linda saw me as a threat, someone who wouldn't just quietly obey. So I decided to fight back. But before I could, I had to understand the full extent of the rules, the secret ones that weren't in the welcome packet or the website. I dug through old HOA meeting minutes, talked to longtime residents, and uncovered a hidden layer of regulations that seemed designed to intimidate and control. And that's when I found it. Rule 7.3 wasn't just about lawn height. It was a weapon, a way to pick on people who didn't fit the mold. And I was their next target. What happened next changed everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In the next part, I'll tell you how the fines escalated, how the HOA board tried to force me out, and the surprising ally I found when I needed it most. So, if you've ever felt powerless against a system that's supposed to protect you, stay tuned, because this story is far from over. When the first fine hit my mailbox, I thought it was just a warning, something I could fix quickly and move on. But that was just the beginning of a nightmare I never saw coming. The HOA didn't just want me to trim my grass, they wanted me to surrender. After the initial $50 fine, the letters kept coming, each one more aggressive than the last. Soon the fines doubled, then tripled, and the HOA board started sending representatives to my door, armed with clipboards and a sense of authority that felt more like intimidation. Linda, the HOA president, was the ringleader of this campaign. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was waging a personal war. I remember one afternoon when she showed up unannounced, measuring my lawn with a tape measure, her eyes cold and unyielding. "This is unacceptable," she said, as if I had committed a crime. I tried to explain that my lawn was healthy and that the rule was arbitrary, but she wasn't interested in reason. The neighbors, who once smiled and waved, now avoided eye contact. Rumors started spreading that I was a troublemaker, someone who didn't respect the community. It was isolating and frustrating. I felt like I was being bullied by a system that was supposed to protect us all, but I wasn't ready to give up. I started attending HOA meetings, hopping to voice my concerns and find allies. That's when I discovered something shocking. Many of the longtime residents were just as fed up as I was. They told stories of ridiculous fines for things like hanging holiday decorations too early or parking a boat in the driveway. The HOA board, led by Linda, had become a small clique with too much power and no accountability. I realized I wasn't alone, and that gave me hope. Together, we started gathering evidence, documenting every unfair fine and every questionable rule. We reached out to a local attorney who specialized in HOA disputes, and he confirmed what we feared. Many of these rules were legally questionable, and the HOA was overstepping its authority. Armed with this knowledge, we began organizing a community meeting to challenge the board. But Linda wasn't going to back down without a fight. She sent out more letters, threatening legal action and even foreclosure if fines weren't paid. The tension in the neighborhood was palpable. It felt like a war zone disguised as a peaceful suburb. I knew I had to stay strong, not just for myself, but for everyone else who was being bullied by this system. In the next part, I'll share how we confronted the HOA board, the unexpected twists that came with standing up to power, and the moment that changed everything. If you've ever felt trapped by rules that don't make sense, keep watching, because this story is about fighting back and reclaiming your home. The day of the community meeting arrived, and I was nervous but determined. I wasn't just fighting for my lawn anymore. I was fighting for every neighbor who felt powerless under the HOA's iron grip. The local community center was packed with residents, many of whom shared their own stories of unfair fines and harassment. When it was my turn to speak, I laid out everything I had uncovered: the secret rules, the escalating fines, and the way the board, led by Linda, had turned a neighborhood into a battleground. The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement and frustration. But then Linda showed up, clipboard in hand, ready to defend her actions. She argued that the rules were necessary to maintain property values and community standards, but her tone was defensive, almost desperate. It was clear she hadn't expected such a united front. One by one, neighbors spoke up, challenging her claims and demanding transparency. The atmosphere shifted from tense to hopeful. We weren't just complaining anymore, we were organizing. After hours of heated discussion, the board agreed to review the rules and fines and promised to be more transparent moving forward. It felt like a small victory, but I knew the fight wasn't over. Over the next few weeks, I worked closely with other residents to draft a petition calling for changes to the HOA bylaws, including clearer rules and fairer enforcement. We collected signatures door to door, and the support was overwhelming. People were tired of feeling bullied and silenced. But Linda wasn't ready to give up her power. She pushed back hard, sending threatening letters and trying to discredit those of us who spoke out. It was stressful, and at times I wondered if it was worth it. But every time I felt discouraged, I reminded myself why I started this fight: to protect my home and my community. Then came the turning point. The HOA board held a special meeting to vote on the proposed changes. The turnout was the highest in years, and the energy was electric. When the votes were counted, the changes passed by a wide margin. The secret rules were exposed, the fines were reduced, and the board agreed to more democratic processes. It was a win for all of us. But more than that, it was proof that even the smallest voices can make a difference when they come together. In the next part, I'll share how life changed after the victory, the challenges that remained, and the lessons I learned about power, community, and standing up for what's right. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by rules or authority, this part is for you, because sometimes the fight is just beginning. After the big win at the HOA meeting, you'd think things would settle down, right? Well, not exactly. Sure, the secret rules were officially on the chopping block, and the fines were reduced, but changing a system that's been in place for years isn't like flipping a switch. The board, especially Linda, didn't disappear quietly. Instead, they shifted tactics. Suddenly, it was all about subtle pressure, passive-aggressive notes left on doors, whispered rumors, and neighbors who once supported us suddenly acting distant. It was a reminder that power doesn't just vanish because of a vote, but the community had changed. More people were speaking up, and the fear that once kept everyone silent was fading. I found myself becoming a sort of unofficial spokesperson, helping neighbors understand their rights and encouraging them to stand firm. We started holding regular neighborhood meetings, not just about rules, but about building trust and connection. It was healing in a way I hadn't expected. Of course, there were still challenges. Some neighbors clung to the old ways, believing the HOA was necessary to keep the neighborhood nice. Others worried about the cost of legal battles or feared retaliation. I understood those fears. I felt them too. But I also saw the power of community when people come together for a common cause. Personally, I learned a lot about resilience and patience. Fighting the HOA wasn't just about grass or fines. It was about standing up for fairness and respect. It taught me that sometimes the rules aren't just written on paper, they're written in the way people treat each other. And that's the hardest rule to change. In the next and final part, I'll share the unexpected ways this battle transformed my life, the surprising friendships I made, and the advice I'd give anyone facing a similar fight. If you're ready to hear how this story ends, and how you can win your own battles, stay tuned. After months of battling the HOA, the dust finally began to settle, and life in the neighborhood started to feel normal again, but with a new sense of respect and community that hadn't existed before. The fight wasn't just about the lawn or the fines anymore. It was about reclaiming our voices and standing up to unfair power. Along the way, I made some unexpected friends and neighbors who had been silent for years but found the courage to speak up, and even a few former skeptics who realized the HOA needed to change. We started working together on community projects, block parties, and even a neighborhood watch, turning what was once a tense place into a supportive community. Personally, this experience taught me so much about resilience, the importance of knowing your rights, and the power of unity. If you're watching this and feeling overwhelmed by rules or authority, remember, you're not alone, and change is possible when people come together. Before I wrap up, I want to thank you for sticking with me through this story. If you found this video helpful, entertaining, or inspiring, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people who might be going through the same struggles. And if you want to hear more stories like this, with real-life drama, justice, and a little bit of humor, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Also, I'd love to hear your own HOA or neighborhood stories in the comments below. What battles have you faced, and how did you handle them? Sharing your experience might just help someone else. Thanks again for watching, and remember, sometimes the smallest voices can make the biggest difference. Stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.